Hey everyone! In today's video, we are going to be looking at patterns. How to read patterns, what all of the stuff on the back of the patterns mean, and what it says, how to pick out the right fabrics so that you can make things using these patterns. They're really our roadmap to construction, and if you've never had anybody explain it to you before, they can be pretty intimidating to look at. So this is one that I use quite a bit. You all know that I don't have any kind of affiliation to Simplicity, the brand, or, any kind of pattern manufacturer. This is just one that's been around for a long, long time. It's pretty tried and true, and it gets used in different incarnations quite a bit by our cast. So hopefully you find this useful. I have it here in both sizes. I will be looking at one of them in particular. I think this is the one, yeah, you can see this is the one that's been written on. I'm recording this after I recorded the meat and potatoes of the video, so this is the one that we look at for the majority of the video, but it is also available in larger sizes, so I didn't want you to think that it was not, because it certainly is. One more thing I want to say before we get started is that I now have a Patreon. If that's something that you find interesting or you think you would be interested in, check it out. The link will be in the description box below, and it will maybe also be at the end of the video. I don't know if I have that or not. Maybe, but definitely I'll have a link in the description box below. If that's something that you are interested in, please check it out. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm hoping to go more towards doing this than doing my day job. My day job is getting to be a little bit sketchy because of all this stay at home and work at home kind of stuff. Who knows what that's going to look like for enrollment, and my job is 100% dependent on enrollment. If enrollment's not at a certain level, I don't have a job. I'm not guaranteed any number of classes. I'm not full-time at all. I am an adjunct, and so I am adjunct to, the regular full-time faculty. So that being said, I'm trying to make my side gig more of my regular gig. So if that's something that you're capable of doing, I would greatly appreciate it. You checking it out. There's all kinds of different levels, everything from, a couple of dollars on up to, whatever you feel like. So I appreciate you taking a look at it and even thinking about it and considering it. So that being said, let's get on to the meat and potatoes of this video. All right, so this is the pattern that I'm going to start with. This is a pattern that I recommend to people a lot for a variety of reasons. And so I just thought I would go over this and how to use this as my example on how to read the pattern. As you all know, I'm not affiliated with any of these pattern companies or anything like that. This is the one I'm going to be working with and have been working with, and so I thought I would use this as an example. So when you pick up your pattern, or when you go to pick up your pattern, you get enticed by these beautiful pictures, right? There's like all these different views. And what you want to pay attention to, the first thing you want to look at when you're picking out your pattern is you want to pay attention to the size range. And if you notice, oops, let me get that in frame. This is size P5, whatever that means. They're translating that to mean it is an American size 12 or 20. This also comes in, I'm a costume director, so I buy these patterns in all the sizes, and I usually have multiple copies. So this is size DD, which is American sizes 4, 6, 8, and 10. And then it's got Europe and French sizes on there as well. I assume that's French. Is that right? I assume that's French. Of course, EUR is Europe. I've never paid attention to the FR before. Sorry, I only look at the American sizes. And American sizes are notoriously useless, right? Like, what is a 6? What does that even mean? So we are going to then, to decide what pattern we want, we are going to look on the back. And if you've ever looked at the back of a pattern, right? They can be super overwhelming. Like, what even is all this information? So we're going to start, we're going to move left to right, top to bottom. And we're just going to get through this information one column at a time. So, and one step at a time. So the first column is, it's telling you what the pieces are. These are what is included in the packet. So sometimes you look at these pictures on the front and maybe it's like just a shirt pattern, but they've got it styled with a pair of pants or a skirt or something. So you always want to check the back of the pattern, because if it's really the skirt you're interested in, you want to make sure that that skirt pattern is what's included in the packet. So double check this little line drawing here and make sure that what you have. And notice how there are letters, right? A, B, C, C, C. Those are the views. So if you look on the front, again, see how this young lady here has an A next to her shoulder? That whole outfit is view A, is what they're telling us. This whole outfit is view C. This whole outfit is view B. Do you see that B up by her shoulder there? So when you look on the back, this corresponds to those pattern pieces. So you can see, so maybe you want to pick and choose, or maybe it's hard to tell. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's going on. Like, what is happening with this? Is this two skirts? Is this one skirt? Like, sometimes that can be hard to figure out. So just by looking at these line drawings, you can also kind of figure out, what is the pattern comprised of? Like, are these separate pieces? Is it all one garment? What is going on? And so here you can see it's a bunch of variations. There are a bunch of shirts. See A, B, C there in the shirts. So I need a pointy thing to point at things. I'm going to grab my magic wand. We're going to get this in focus. So right here's shirt A, here's shirt B, here's shirt C. And those correspond to the shirts these ladies are wearing. See how she's got the gathers on her sleeves? Those aren't just ribbons that she's tied around her arms. It's actually built that way. And then there's shirt B, and then there's shirt C. So that tells me that these are made in 3 separate ways, right? They're made in different ways. They have separate skirts. There are 2 different skirt options. There are different bodice options, which is what this vesty kind of thing is called. This is a bodice. And there's a kind of weird kind of veil style, sort of historical headpiece thing. Up here, it looks a little bit like a bridal veil up at the top, but that's what they're showing here. And this looks like a bum roll. Is it a bum roll? It's either a headpiece or it's a bum roll. We can suss that out later. I'm guessing it's a bum roll for these 2. It's for A and B, but not C, correct? Yeah. So there's a bum roll pattern here too, which is kind of cool. So this can be used for, again, it can be, there's a bunch of pieces here that can be mixed and matched. That's why I like this pattern so much. And it can be easily altered. You can easily change it to fit your vision of what you want to do out at festival. So it's a good kind of all-purpose pattern. Now, the one thing I am going to caution you against, never make the pattern look the way it looks like when you make your own dress. Never make the pattern look exactly as you see it on the pattern envelope. I mean, I guess you can if you want, but understand that a lot of these patterns, like this pattern has been out for years. It's been out for years and years and years. Everybody has it, like, that does this kind of costuming, or a lot of people do anyway. And people are going to recognize it. And it's just going to look like you bought, the thing off the cover. It just looks kind of weird and kind of, I don't know, off. So, and it's not, you're not using your imagination. Like, make this yours. This is this artist's or this creator's, idea of what this outfit should look like. Make it yours. Make it unique to you. What if you do these two skirts and this bodice, right? What if you do this bodice and, and two skirts like this, right? Like, what, shake it up, change it up, make it different, make it your own. Anyway, so that's one thing that I would suggest against is never try to recreate the look directly on the pattern envelope, because it's going to look like you're dressed like the mannequin, if you will. You're just going to look like you didn't use your imagination. And that's part of the point behind making something yourself, is that you get to use your imagination, right? And you get to express yourself, and you get to make something how you want it. Okay. So that's this first column, and this can really be handy when you're kind of planning out what you want to wear. The next two columns are the exact same information, just one is in English and one is in French. So let me zoom in a little bit here. So this column is all in English. This column is in French. So we are going to be working primarily with this column. So I am going to zoom us in a little bit, and we're going to start working our way down this column. So if you look in this first section, this gives us the fabric suggestions. Now, I always have a notebook handy when I'm going through patterns, and I like to take notes. I try to keep a notebook on me. Now I have a cell phone that I can take notes on. So I have my little notebook here, and I can start to take some notes, and I can say, okay, so the fabrics, so it's saying the blouse is in broadcloth or silk chiffon, the vest, that's what they're calling the bodice. So that's like view A, view B, view C. They're calling that a vest. And there are fabrics that they are suggesting. Let's see. The bum roll, blah, blah, blah. So this is where you can kind of, that's the fun part, right? Like when you are figuring out what you want, right? You can say, okay, so the shirt is in broadcloth. So then you go to where the quilting cottons are and you look for the broadcloth. That's what this fabric is. It's just an even weave, lightweight fabric that, you can use for some of these patterns. All right. The next section down, so that's easy, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. It tells you what fabrics you can use for what parts. Some of these are really detailed. Some of them won't apply to you. If you're not going to do the bum roll, then you don't have to worry about that. If you're not going to do the veil thingy, this little hat weird thingy, you don't have to do that either, right? It's entirely up to you what pieces you're going to do. So the second section says notions. So notions are basically, it's all the little sewing bits and bobs you need to put this together. So if you look, it literally has listed everything that you're going to need. So thread, right? You're going to want thread to match. So I've got this pink broadcloth fabric. I don't want to stitch it in this dark blue, right? Like you want to stitch it in something that's a little more similar. You want to use a pink thread of some sort, right? Something that's going to blend in. I don't know if I have a pink that will work. I thought I had more pinks. I might have to go back to the store and get some fabric or some thread that'll work. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like get some thread that will match as close as you can. It's never going to be 100%, but you can get 90. You can get pretty darn close, like pretty darn close. I'm looking up at my threads and I'm wondering where all my pinks are. Anyway, so thread. You'll want a package of 1/4 inch wide elastic. Good luck getting that these days. You'll need some 1/2 inch double wide double fold bias tape. And we talked about bias tape in the mask making video, which I will link to below and at the end of the video. But that double fold bias tape is something I talk about. Let's see, if you're using A, you'll need 2 packages of metallic, or 1 package for B and C. So again, it depends on what you're doing, right? A, they're saying you need metallic for, well, you know, sorry if that made you dizzy. You can see that A is a little bit fancier, right? And so if you're using B or C, you don't need metallic bias tape. Okay. So anyway, so you can go through here, and I'm not going to go through every little thing here, but this tells you all of the things that you need. If you ever have a question on what any of this stuff is, there are clerks there that can help you. There are salespeople there that can help you. Ladies behind the cutting counter, trying to debug them while they're cutting fabric. That's like, I did that job, and you're just like trying to get through the pile of people. There's always like a ton of people waiting in line. See if you can find somebody else that's walking the floor to help you. But if not, if all you can find is at the cutting counter, sometimes that's the way it goes. Sometimes it's like super busy there, and those are the only people you can find. Then, you know, then that's what you got to do. But, you know, there will be an employee there that can help explain what some of these things are if you don't know what they are. Okay. Now, which size do I buy, right? So which size do I buy? These are going to go by, again, clothing sizes and kind of standard clothing sizes. And if you don't know, standard clothing sizes are not standard, particularly for women's clothing. Every manufacturer has their own standard of what a size 8 is, or their own standard of what a 10 is, or whatever. Usually it's a size 8 that they start with. That's usually their 0 point, and then they size up from there or down. But size 8 is often the standard that they start with. And everybody's is different. Every single person's in the planet is different. So every manufacturer is different. There's absolutely no standard in the clothing industry. So you really want to go by these body measurements. And so they give you a list of body measurements here. This will give you a rough idea on which to buy. So if you are, so this is your bust measurement, right? So that's the high part of your bust that's just under your armpits and over, not over the high part of your chest, like not over the peak of your chest, but just above that, like over the upper part of your rib cage. I'll try to find a chart and put that below of what these different measurements mean. But there's the high bust measurement, your waist measurement. So that's where you bend at the waist. Like if you're going to bend side to side, like where do you kind of naturally crease? So that's not where you wear your pants. It's not where you wear your skirts. It's not where you prefer the waistlines on your dresses. It's where does your body naturally bend? Where does your body naturally crease? That is your waistline. And that's what you want to measure. It's usually the a couple inches above your navel, and it's usually the narrowest part above your hips. And then there's hips, which is about 8 inches below the waist. So that's usually like the widest part around your hips that you want to measure. That should be that measurement. And then your back, neck to waist. So back, neck to waist, that's something you can worry about once you have the pattern. You can always adjust this. What I would look for is I would look for your high bust measurement and your hip or waist measurement, whatever is bigger. So I'm a very hippie girl, so I always have to go with the largest hip measurement that I can find. But I'm not a terribly busty gal, so I want to go with a smaller bust measurement. So sometimes I will have to buy 2 patterns, one to fit my bust, one to fit my hips, and then just kind of piece things together. You know, it is what it is. Like, this isn't measuring yourself for a pattern is not a time to worry about your body image as much as you can possibly get away from that. This is the time to just be honest with yourself. get into the bathroom with a tape measure and just measure yourself, or have your partner measure you, and just, figure out what, what these measurements are. So, don't beat yourself up about it. It's just a number. It's a number that is literally meaningless. So just try to think of it that way. Because if you say, well, I'm typically a size 8, so I'm just going to buy a size 8, I can almost guarantee that it's either going to be huge or tiny. Probably huge. The smaller sizes tend to be way bigger than they need to be. In a lot of pattern manufacturers, Simplicity is kind of notorious for that. So be honest with your numbers. And I'll do a video on this a little bit later. I probably won't make this part of this video because it's already like 20 minutes long or whatever. But when you get the pattern, like, this will help you ballpark which envelope of pattern to find. Then later you can measure the pattern pieces themselves to kind of figure out which specific pieces you should use, like what actual size you should use. And then down at the bottom, these are the measurements. These are the finished garment measurements, and this is printed on the pattern tissue. This can help you also kind of figure out the size. I would still recommend measuring the pattern pieces though once you get this home. So use these measurements as a general guideline of what size to buy, but I would, before you cut into your pattern or before you decide what size to use, I would just buy the kind of general pattern, because again, this is multiple sizes. So, if you find yourself on the edge of a size, I would buy both, but, or depending on how you fit, if you're kind of a bigger gal, I would buy this bigger size. If, you tend to kind of fall on the smaller end, then you could buy the smaller size. Every manufacturer is a little different on that, though. Some manufacturers run big, some manufacturers run small. It really depends on the size range. So just, again, use this as a general kind of guideline, but understand that that's really the best you're going to be able to do, is a general kind of guideline. So we've picked our body measurement. Let's say we're here. I'm just going to pick this. Oh, hey, how about I get in frame? So I'm just going to pick this body measurement just because it's right in the middle, and we're going to say this is our size. Haha, I wish. All right, so I'm going to grab my pencil and I'm just going to mark it. So this is my size. So I'm just going to put a mark on there so I can remember. Don't mark the pattern if you haven't purchased it. Write it down on your little notebook. And so now I know how much, and so maybe I've decided over here, I want to do vest A or bodice A. I want to do maybe 2 of this skirt, and a bum roll. Let's say that's what I want to make out of this pattern, right? So then I come back over here and I say, okay, that is bodice A, or vest A as they're calling it. So I just come down here, and of course here's European sizes, by the way. So I come down here, now that I found the column of my sizes, and I say, okay, for a costume, I'm not worried about the blouse. I'm going to do something else for my shirt. But for the vest, I'm just going to come back over here, and it's like you're plotting, right? I come down into this column and then into this row. Now, what this is asking me is, how wide is my fabric? A standard bolt of fashion fabric that's meant for clothing, is typically 45 inches. That's not always true, though. Some linens, some fancier fabrics, sometimes they will come in 54 inches. So that will always be printed on the end of the bolt. You can, and for right now, if you need help, you can always ask the clerk. But you want to find out, is it 54 inches or is it 45 inches? Because if it's 45 inches, here's what it tells you. You need 3/4 of a yard. So I zoomed in, and it's pretty blobby and kind of out of focus, but it's 5/8. So if it's 45 inches wide, you need 3/4 of a yard. If it's 54 inches wide, then you need 5/8 of a yard. This helps you from buying too much fabric, so you don't end up with tons of fabric just laying around with nothing to do about it. And then it tells you to buy just the same amount of lining. So if you're lining it in broadcloth, then you would also buy 5/8 of broadcloth. It tells you to buy some interfacing. And then if you're doing the veil, if you're doing all these other things, it tells you what to buy. So this is all of the things ribbon, because this closes with a ribbon up the front. What you need for your bum roll. Like, it gives you all of this stuff. So it's pretty comprehensive, right? This tells you everything that you need. So I would suggest writing this all down, right? So I am doing vest A. So vest A, I'm doing it in a size 34. So I need, my fabric is 45 inches wide. So I need 3/4 of a yard. That's of my outside fabric and my fashion fabric. What did I say? Oh, I need 3/4 of a yard of lining material. It says 1 1/4 yard of non-fusible interfacing. I'm not doing the veil. I'm not doing the bum roll. I am doing the ribbon, which I will need. So I need 2 yards of ribbon. That's for the blouse bows. Oh, for the vest tie. So I don't need that. See, I stopped reading and I messed myself up. So I do not need the ribbon. Cross that off. But I do need the decorative cord. 2 yards of 1/4 inch wide. And then feather boning, 3/4 of a yard. And these are all things that you can get at the store. The store will have all of this stuff. So again, if you can't find it, you will find somebody to help you. So the feather boning, the decorative cord, those are going to be for the vest. So this, you can see this is kind of involved. Like, if you've ever seen the ladies kind of, and gents kind of sitting around that table of all the patterns and they're there for like ever. This is why. It's because we're figuring out, like, what do we need? And then you just continue on down this line for every single piece of costume that you're making, right? And it's all set, according to the view and according to the piece, right? Like, what are you making? If you're making the sea vest, then this is what you need, right? So it's all laid out for you. Okay, so we picked our pattern, we picked our views and what we're going to make, right? So we're going to make this vest. We picked all our fabric and what we need to do. Now we are going to look at our instructions and we are going to kind of go through what needs to be done. So I always recommend, and I was taught to do this by, I don't know, home ec class or my grandmother, somebody, but always go through the pattern once. Try not to confuse yourself too much. If something doesn't make clear sense, don't sweat it too much, but at the same time, you should be familiar with the pattern. So once again, we have these beautiful line drawings. That's the first thing you see when you open up the pattern instructions, and it shows you all of the different pieces. So again, we've kind of decided that we're going to do, this bodice. Oops, sorry, shook the camera. So we decided we're going to do this bodice, right? We're going to do bodice A. So right next to this line drawing are these more simplified line drawings. And if you look, it is showing me all of the pattern pieces that I need for these various views. So I'll just kind of move this up a little bit so we can see everything that it's saying. So the vest pieces, or the bottom pieces, the body pieces are all the same. Notice how it just says vest front. It's not differentiating between vest A, B, or C. So I know that all the vest pieces are the same. So I'm going to need piece 10. And you'll notice they tend to, they're all kind of numbered. Pieces that are numbered close together tend to kind of go together. So like 1, 2, and 3 are the blouse front, back, and sleeve. So that's kind of convenient, right? So we need the vest front. We need the vest back. We are making the view with the little peplum. That's what you call these little roundy thingies coming off the waist. So we are going to need that. We're going to need the guide for the grommets because this does take grommets. As we just need these 4 pieces, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So that's when you would go through and cut those out in the size you need. Figure out the size you need and cut them out. But again, before I start sewing anything, even before I start cutting it out, I like to look at my pattern. So the next thing in that top row, by the way, and these are read like a book, even though it's just a folded piece of paper. You start at the upper left, read like a book in Western culture. You start in the upper left and you work left to right. So that was the next section. So these are just the general directions. And I almost skipped over these because I'm so used to it. But this explains what a lot of the symbols on the pattern itself means, and what a lot of the symbols in the cutting layouts mean. So this is worth looking over and kind of making sense of. Like, take a few minutes, look over this, look at your pattern, and look for these marks. You'll see these symbols on the pattern. And so you know now what that means. What does that dot mean? What do those notches mean? Right? These are things that are important to have, you know, and to understand what they are. So take a look at the general directions. Every pattern, this is specific to Simplicity Patterns. Every pattern is a little different. Every manufacturer is a little different, and they have their own kind of system. So that's worth noting. That's worth taking a look at. All right, the next thing that we see are the cutting layouts. And cutting layouts can save your life because these will help you maximize your fabric. When they tell you 3/4 of a yard, they are squeezing that pattern onto that 3/4 of a yard as closely as possible. Excuse me, as closely as possible. So first we want to find, we're not doing the blouse. I want to find the piece we're doing. We're not doing the skirt. We're not doing the bum roll. Oh, but we are doing this vest, right? And so we look at, let me zoom into this cutting layout a little bit. All right. So we are doing the vest. Our fabric is 45 inches. So notice how there's 3 different layouts. Do you see that? 1, 2, and 3. This is 54 inches with nap. So nap is like if it's velvet or a one-way pattern of some sort. So a pattern that would look weird if it was upside down, or you could clearly tell if it was upside down. That's the nap of a fabric. Velvet, if you notice, it kind of lays down kind of like a cat's hair or a dog's hair, right? It has a direction to it. So this is for directional fabric of some sort. So this is 54 inches with nap. Sizes 18 and 20. This is 54 inches with nap. Sizes 4, 6, 8, blah, 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 everything except 18 and 20. But we don't have 54-inch fabric. We have 45-inch nap fabric. So this is 45 inches with nap. So it's nice that they have that this is with nap, because it tells us that we don't have to think about it. If our fabric is you know, directional in some kind of way, we don't have to think about it. They've already taken care of planning that out for us. All right, and this is all sizes. And then for the lining, we follow the same layout. All right, so selvages. What are the selvages? So on fabric, and I think we talked about this before, but just as a quick recap. So, you know, if I'm seated at a loom, right, and here's kind of the end of my loom, and I will have a bunch of threads under tension. These are called the warp threads. And the weaver weaves the threads in and out to create a matrix of fabric, right? To create this kind of pattern of fabric. These are called weft threads. And these edges, where you kind of turn back around and go back, is called the selvage. So as you're buying your fabric on the bolt, you are, right, this would be like the cut edge of the fabric, and then this would be the selvage. So looking at some actual fabric, getting this out of our way for a moment. So here's my cut edge. So it would be kind of this way on the loom. And then here's the fold. So it is folded on a bolt. I can't zoom out any more than that. Let me see if I can pull back a little bit. So here's the fold of the fabric. So it is folded on a bolt, right? So it's 54 inches, but they don't have it on 54 inch or 45 inches rather. They don't have it on a 45-inch wide bolt. They have it on like a 24-inch bolt, and it's just rolled up on there, or a 22-inch bolt, and it's just rolled up on there. So we have the fold on one end, and on the other end is the selvage edge. So this is where the threads turn around and come back, right? So this is the weft, this is the cross grain, this is the grain of the fabric. This is the warp threads that would be set up on the loom. All right, totally lost track of where my paper was, but I found it. So getting back into this, it tells you, it shows you how to lay your fabric out. Get this angled back down. And zoomed back in. So it shows you how to lay this fabric out. You want the selvages away from you. You want the fold towards you, right? And then here are your cut edges. And that's how you're going to lay your patterns out. Any pattern pieces that are here that are gray, they are upside down. How did I learn that? By looking at my general directions up above. That explained that to me. So here the pattern is upside down. Here the pattern is right side out. Does that make sense? I can do a video showing that to you if that doesn't make any sense. But hopefully that explained it to you. So your selvages, right? Your selvage edges would be together and away from you. This is doubled over. So they've got an image of two. So here's, so it looks like there's two. There's the selvage edges. This is the cut edge off the bolt, cut edge, and then there's the fold. And then you would have one pattern piece laid out on the fold. That's the center back. You would have the front piece on the selvage edge, and then you have the tabs kind of squeezed in around. And that is how you lay out your fabric or lay out your pattern. All right. From there, now once we've got our layout down and we've got all of our pattern pieces laid out, and we've got them all cut out, we got all of our materials together, then the next thing we do is we look through our pattern and we look for the sewing instructions. So that's going to be the rest of the pattern. It's just going to be the sewing instructions. There will be some general sewing directions, like here. So it's giving us some general tips on how to clip corners. And this is just really good general sewing information. Once you have this kind of stuff down, that doesn't change. See how it shows you a right side, wrong side, right? You know, so you can follow these general directions. And some patterns will have more, like Vogue patterns tend to be a little bit more complicated. They have more couture sewing or more kind of hand sewing and hand finishing bits and pieces, where like a simplicity pattern, it's called simplicity because they're more simplistic. So they're not as complicated as, say, even a McCall's pattern. That's historically, that's why they were started. Vogue is, they're all owned by the same company. I don't want to burst your bubble. They used to be all separate companies. Now it's all the same. Vogue is the high fashion line. Butterick is also more a high fashion line. Simplicity is more kind of the easy to sew line, and McCall's tends to be more sportswear. That's been slowly changing over the years as everybody's kind of gotten more into like costume bits and things like that. But that's why you're not going to see as many like vintage patterns from one manufacturer, and you might see more in another or what have you. And they really do walk you through it. So you're not going to need all of these directions for this. Now we just go through and we find our pattern that are our directions that we need. So it's not on page 1. It's all the way here on page, so it's on page 1, it's not on the other side, which is page 2. It's all the way over here on page 3. And it starts kind of here in the middle of the page, but this is where we need to start with our directions. And it just walks us through the steps. You just follow the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for this pattern, what I would suggest you do is walk through the individual steps. Just read through all the steps. Don't read through the whole pattern. You're not doing the whole pattern. Even if you are doing the whole pattern, start one garment at a time. Start one thing at a time until you get better, or more, not better, but until you get more knowledgeable, until things become easier for you. Just start simply. Just start it simply. So ABCs, right? So just kind of look, at the instructions, read through the instructions one at a time. If you have any questions, if you're on any problems, you can always message me. You can message me here on my videos. You can PM me and, or DM me, and I will, comment, or I will message you, and I could try to walk you through things. You can always ask the store, right, that you bought your patterns from, your Joann's, your Michael's, whomever you bought your patterns from, local sewing store. Take sewing lessons if you have a local sewing store. That's not a bad idea. But it's really, hopefully that's kind of broken things down for you, and how to read a pattern, and how to read these envelopes. I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please like and subscribe. Share this video on your social media. Let me know what worked, what didn't work. I appreciate you following it all the way through. Support me on Patreon if you can. If you can't, I understand these are tough times for us all. But take care of yourself. Stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Bye.